Classic rock fishing rig, a proven fish catcher. Hi, my name's Roger Osborne. You may be thinking, what are the best rigs to use when you're fishing off the rocks? I'm not really that confident. You may be a beginner rock fisherman or you've done some rock fishing. Well, the rig that I'm going to teach to you today, I've been using personally for 40 years, and I know some amazing fishermen that have caught thousands of fish using this exact rig. Make sure that you like and subscribe to this video. I really appreciate it. Let's get started. I've come down to this location this afternoon. The seas are actually really flat. I haven't fished in this spot for probably at least a month. Haven't spoken to anybody, any local fishermen. Don't know if they're catching any fish. However, I do know, based on the time of day, the sort of terrain there that I'm going to be casting my line into, that my possibility of catching some nice fish to eat is very high. So regardless of what anybody else has been doing, I know it's a great time to fish and a good location. Also, I've only brought one rod and I've only brought one bait. So the bait I'm using this afternoon is pilchards. However, there's a specific way that I am putting them on the hook. And the rod that I'm using is a 12-foot Taipan coupled with a Shimano Speedmaster 14,000 reel and 30-pound monofilament line. So first of all, I'm going to show you how I prepare the pilchard and put it on the hook, and then I'm going to whack a line out because I haven't started fishing yet and I've only got about an hour before it's pitch black, and I really would like to catch a couple of fish. So I've got a few pilchards. Here's one that I've just been soaking in a bit of water to thaw out. Now I only use a half pilchard for bait. Because I'm aiming to cast a distance, aerodynamics is important, so I actually trim the tail so that that does not flap in the wind when I cast. I know it seems like a minor detail, but it does make a difference. Then, because this is a small pilchard, I'm going to cut it on a bit of an angle, 3/4 of the way up, like that. So this is my bait. When I'm doing this type of fishing and using this rig, I specifically only use the tail of the pilchard because it flies through the air better, and I'll show you when I put it on the hook. It's a very neat bait and I'm able to secure it very well, much better than if I use the head part. So I only use the tail. So now I have a classic rig with like my stinger rig here. I've got a stinger hook which is a size 4 and a main hook which is a size 4.0. So what I do is towards the end of the fish, I put the hook in and I pull it all the way through the other side. You can see that? I've got the line going right through. Then I'm going to pin that hook in about the middle of the fish, like so that the barb comes out the other side, and then pull that alongside so it's just sitting nice and flush on the fish like that. So you've got the barb of the hook down there. Then I'm going to bring my stinger hook up, which I've got here, and I'm going to put the little stinger in here through the flesh to the other side, turn it around, and then pin it in again like so, and lie it down so it's sitting flat like that. You can see there's that lovely barb sticking out there. So you can see actually the barb's facing an opposite side to that hook, but that's all right because it means I've got a barb on both sides. Then I'm going to do a half hitch, which is really simply creating a loop and folding it over on itself, turning it around, and then putting that over the tail of the pilchard, holding it in place and pulling it tight like so. You can see that that secures the bait. I've got a half hitch. Now, this pilchard is just straight out of the packet. It's not salted. It's purely a natural pilchard. I actually, in all my 40 years of fishing, I have not actually used salted pilchards off the rocks yet. I've just used straight pilchards. And I'm just not in the habit of salting them, not that they're bad, and they certainly are tougher, but I've caught I don't know how many fish using a bait like that, thousands of fish. So I'm just going to toss my line out and I'll be casting out into what is called broken reef. And what I mean by that is you've got patches of sand and reef. In this particular location where I am, if I move to the left, I can just cast onto sand. But the further I go out along the point, the sand starts to disappear and it eventually just becomes pure rock. Now, if I cast on the sand, I know I'm not going to get snagged. If I cast in the broken reef, I do have potential to catch more species, because some species like to hang over the reef and then they'll come over onto the sand, particularly snapper. If I go out further and I cast out on purely the hard rock, then I am risking getting snagged, although I'm probably more likely to catch snapper out there. But I'm not planning on casting out onto the hard reef because I want to minimise losing tackle, and I would like to actually fish in that area where the sand meets the reef. So that's what I'm aiming for when I cast out now. Just going to have a little wander down here. Sometimes you can tell, it's hard to tell now because the sun is low, it's just about set. But when the sun is higher, you can actually see where the sand is and see where the reef is. It's a little bit hard for me to tell at the moment. I'm just going to get over close to the water's edge because there's a rock shelf and I want to cast over it. So I've actually come down to the edge. It's very safe today. It's so flat. There's no waves around and the wind is actually blowing offshore off the land. But I'm going to put in a fairly solid cast because I want to get out into that nice broken reef and sand. Okay, make sure that my bail arm's flipped over, of course. Oh, actually, when my bait landed in the water, I saw fish scatter. I landed in a school of fish and it made them, the fish just scattered everywhere. So that's a good sign, even though they were only small bait fish. So now I've only got the one rod. It's very relaxing. And I'm just going to sit here and relax and enjoy the beautiful afternoon and wait for a fish. So I've had my first cast. I put in a pretty solid cast. I probably flicked it maybe 70 or 80 metres. And I know for sure that I landed on the sand. So at the moment I've got a nice half pilchard bait just on that sand bottom. The sand here is surrounded by reef, so there's a lot of different species of fish here. If I don't get any bites in 5 minutes or so, I'm not actually just going to sit there and leave it there and wait. I'm going to wind it back in again. I'm actually going to cast it maybe 20 metres to the right, which is further into the reef. But I think it's actually, when you've only got, say, about an hour or so to fish, you don't want to just sit there and leave it in one spot if you're not getting bites. It's just another lesson when you're rock fishing. So I'm actually going to cast in a couple of different spots, cast out a little bit further, a little bit closer. And the whole purpose of that is to actually locate where there are some fish. I haven't had any nibbles. My line's been in the water for maybe 3 or 4 minutes and I haven't had a bite. There's so much weed here on the rocks, it's incredible. Actually, I reckon the luderick fishing would probably be going off the Richter right now. There's so much food here. The luderick and drummer, actually. Now, when I look in the water, even though the light is low, I can still tell by looking at the colour of the water whether it's a sand bottom or a rock bottom. In the case here, I can see the water is slightly darker in colour closer to me for possibly 30 or 40 metres. But when I look out further, I can see the colour of the water just change a couple of lighter shades. And that tells me that that is a sand bottom, because when you've got a hard rock bottom, it's black, it's dark, and the water looks dark. But when you've got a sand bottom, it looks more like a light green, you know, because you've got more of a white bottom and just the colour of the water. And even when I look in the distance, there's reef a couple of 100 metres that way. I can see a big dark patch, and then as I come towards where I'm fishing, I can see the dark transition into a lighter colour. So I'm just sharing that so that when you're down at the rocks, you can have a look and you can just ascertain where you're fishing on sand and where you're fishing on rock. If you come down in the middle of the day at lunchtime when the sun is directly above, it's highlighted a lot more. At the moment, the sun has basically gone behind the hill, so it's not as easy to tell. I've had my bait in the water for 5 or 6 minutes. I haven't even had a tap or a nibble. So I don't think I want to leave it there. However, I've cast out over reef onto sand and I can't just wind my line in. What I need to do is wind up the slack and give it a big pull to lift it off the bottom, and then wind really quick to get my bait up off the bottom high into the water column. And then I've got to wind it quickly and keep it coming across the surface so that I don't get caught on the rocks near the shore. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'll do up my drag a little bit. So I'm going to wind up the slack line like this, and then I'm going to go reef like that and wind really quick, and I'm going to keep winding quick. I'm not going to stop. I'm going to keep winding quickly. This is just what you've got to do when you're fishing off the rocks. I can see my sinker skipping across the surface, and I'm just going to lift it straight up now. So I got my sinker and my bait, everything back, no problem. If I was just to casually wind, I'd just be dragging my sinker and my bait across the rocks. And that's a recipe for disaster. So that's the typical thing when I do this type of fishing. That's what you do every time. If you haven't had a bite or you want to wind your line in, that's what you do. And also if you're fishing in a really rocky area, that's the only thing you can do. All right, I'm going to chuck it back out again. Just going to wander back down near the edge. Now I have my spikes on, which are fantastic. I'm still going to use the same bait, but I'm going to cast a bit further out to sea on a slightly different angle. So that's probably landed at least 20 meters further out, along the point. Because I cast on a bit of an angle that way. So I'm thinking that I've landed, a good 20 meters further out that way. So we'll see if that makes any difference from a bite point of view. It could make a big difference. It's a big fish. Whatever it is, it's solid, I tell you. Look at that. Classic. Oh, is that a Port Jackson? Oh, he's got a weed fish plus something else. What is it? I have a feeling it's a Port Jackson shark. Hey! Lovely big Port Jackson shark. Mate, those things are like pulling in a dumbbell. I didn't cast quite as far that time. I thought I'd just cast a little closer. Okay, so the basics of this rig which I'm teaching you, essentially the basic pattern is what is called a Paternoster rig. However, what I do is when I'm at home, there's two parts to the rig. Just put my line down. One part is a sinker, so you've got a swivel. That's just stopping the sinker at the end. And then you've got a length of line about 500 mils or 50 centimeters to a swivel. So that's part one of the rig, which is, I guess, your dropper with your sinker. Now part two of the rig, I've got a bit of pool noodle here, and I've made some rigs here which I'm going to take one off. I've just got my hooks sticking in the pool noodle. I'll put that down. So essentially all I have here now is a swivel with a relatively short leader of about 20 centimeters or 8 inches to a stinger hook and a main hook. So essentially I get my main line and I put it through the hole in the top part of the swivel. So you've got that there. So you can see here, I've got my line on my rod, I've put it through the top end of the swivel, and I've got the sinker hanging there. The only knot that I have to tie is to my leader. So I can make up those parts at home, and when I get down here, all I've got to do is put this through the other end of the swivel and join it. Literally would take me 1 minute when I'm down at the rocks, and I'm ready to put my bait on. Now, if you want to know how to tie this knot, I've got a video on my channel on how to tie this very simple knot. So make sure that you check that out. So let's have a look at the finished rig. Let me just grab this. So you can see there's my leader to my hooks. That's on my, it's actually a running sinker rig because the line with my sinker on it, which is attached to a swivel, will run like so. So what that means is this is not what you'd call a fixed Paternoster rig. It's a running Paternoster rig, and the beauty of that is when your sinker's on the bottom and a fish wants to take it, it can just pull line and run without having the sinker impede the fish, or when the fish is biting, it doesn't feel the weight of the sinker. So that is an absolute cracking rig. I've caught, well, probably thousands of fish using this rig specifically off the rocks. A whole variety of different species of fish. It's very good. Oh, I had a bite straight away and then I wasn't expecting it. Pull my line in and rebait. Just got to watch these waves that are coming in. That was the culprit, just a small trevally. I just tried tossing in a different direction and I got a bite straight away, but it's obviously only a small fish. So I'll quickly let this one go and put my bait back. Just waiting to see what's going to go on with this bite. Probably more trevally. They're such soft biters, trevally. Difficult to hook sometimes because they're just such soft biters. It's hard to know when to strike. It's easier when they're bigger, and it's easier when you use worms because they just swallow them. So guys, I'm here again on a different day this time. The last time I was in this spot using this rig, I didn't get a single bite after 20 minutes, and I've learnt after lots of times on the rocks, sometimes the fish are there and sometimes they're not. That's okay. You don't know unless you actually come down and put a bait in the water and have a try. So I'm back down here again using exactly the same rig and using just half pilchards, the same bait again, casting in the same spot. I'm going to see if I can catch some fish this time. Okay, so it's probably a salmon. Maybe not. Okay. It's a good old salmon. I can't escape them, doesn't matter where I go. Off the beach, off the rocks. However, you can see this rig which I've been teaching you in this video, and in this particular case I'm just using half pilchards. And this salmon's been caught on the keeper hook, which is what I call a stinger. You can see here actually, you can see the main hook is not in the fish. The small hook is in the fish. These little salmon like this are actually quite, well, when I say little, he's probably, maybe close to 40 centimetres long, but they're actually really sweet, beautiful to eat. I ate some the other night, ceviche, which is purely thinly slicing it and serving it, just putting lemon juice over the top with a few fresh herbs. Beautiful, really delicate. So I'm going to let this guy go. But you can see this rig works perfectly well. It's a really great way of fishing off the rocks. I think I've got a stingray or something. Now this fish feels like a creature of the deep of some kind. I don't expect it's a quality eating fish. It's got a lot of weight in it, but I think it's probably, I'm guessing, a banjo ray or a Port Jackson shark or something. Just got to keep my eye on the waves while I'm playing it when I get near the shore so I can actually get it up onto the shelf. You're always hoping you're going to get surprised with a nice fish, but I'm not quite sure what this thing is, the way it's behaving. It's a big, oh, it's quite big. Woo. It's a big box head. This is what we call a box head. A Port Jackson shark. It's kind of what it felt like. I just want to remove my hooks quickly. You can see the rig here. Got my snapper sinker there, which is a free running. It's on a dropper, but it's free running. So now just got to look after this guy and let him go. You can see the spikes. You can see the spikes on top of his fins. Alrighty, I don't want to hurt him. Just their mouths are really tough. And I don't want to get my fingers, oh, beautiful. Just got to let this guy go. That's not exactly what I was desiring, but he went back safe and sound. So I'll bait up again. I'm actually getting quite a long way out. I think my average cast is probably about 80 metres. I'm casting right out across this bay. I'm landing on sand. And I'm hoping that, the typical species you would catch is things like Bream, Trevally and snapper, etc. Obviously salmon, tailor, even kingfish, a variety of things. I think that was a Trevally bite. I had a bite then, I missed it. It felt like that bite felt like a Trevally. But I got my bait back, interestingly enough. Man, what was that? It's like I was getting a bite, but it was coming towards me really quite quickly. I'm always watching where I'm walking when I'm coming out here. I don't really particularly want to tread in a hole on the rocks and get trip over or anything like that. Okay, I got machine gun fire bites on the last cast, but didn't hook it. Let's just see what happens this time. Okay, let's see how we go this time. You always live with anticipation, especially in places like this, because you can really hook anything. And you're never going to catch a trophy fish just standing at home thinking about it. When I've been casting my line out, I have been trying casting in different spots. So I'm kind of prospecting really. I'm casting out further out to sea to my right, in a little bit closer, just testing. Like if I don't get any bites in a particular spot, I'm not going to cast back in the same spot and leave it there again. I'm going to try moving a little bit. Now, I've been getting a variety of bites, some smaller fish. I feel like there's some Trevally out there. They're quite soft biters. I got that salmon, got the shark. Just waiting to see what else is swimming around. It's a good time, it's high tide. That's why the waves are washing up onto this rock quite a lot. If it was low tide, this would be almost dry. But because of the tide, all of those waves, some of them are washing up above my knees, but it's a pretty safe spot. There's a few other guys here fishing for Luterick and having a bit of fun. Got him. Maybe it's a salmon. It's a salmon from Milton. Not very big, I don't think. Oh, that was a salmon, but I dropped him on the edge. I was going to be for you. No, he would have been good salmon for bait. Oh well, unfortunately that fish got off right on the edge. Mustn't have been very well hooked. I've had a bit of action in this session. I just dropped quite a large salmon on the edge of the rocks. It wasn't hooked very well. But there's so many things about fishing that we don't know. I've been fishing down here late in the morning, 10 a.m. in the morning, and every time I cast my line out rig like this, I get hit within about, it's a wave coming. As I was saying, it's really quite amazing because who knows why sometimes the water's just alive with fish. Not just one species, but a whole variety of different species. I've had that here. I'll cast my line into the water. 1 minute you're hooking a snapper, the next minute a trevally, a tailor, a bream, a salmon, and it's just mayhem. Other times you come down and it's like, where have they all gone? I mean, it looks beautiful. I don't think anyone knows the answer to that. The main thing is that you're out here enjoying the beautiful outdoors and giving yourself an opportunity to catch some beautiful fish. Had a couple of whacks then. Yeah, got him. Yeah, oh yes, waiting for that fish to hit. Now, what will this be? That's the question. I think it just jumped out of the water, so I think that tells us what it is. But my friend will be very happy because he wants a bit of bait for fishing, and this is what I want to get for him. So hopefully this guy's hooked a bit better than the last one. Yeah, I'm going to lift him up. Yep, got him. All right. I'm happy about this because I've got a friend who likes going fishing for flathead out in the ocean, and he loves using salmon fillet for bait. While this fish would be actually really good to eat, he's destined to be converted into flathead. Fish are so versatile. You can upgrade to other species using one type of fish to catch another fish. So I've been keeping it really simple this morning. I've only got one bait. I've just got pilchards. I've been using a half pilchard on a simple rig. And it's been really enjoyable. Great way to spend a day. Whoops. So in this session, I'd say it's one of those kind of low to moderate sessions. I've hooked a couple of fish. I've had a few different types of bites. I've got a shark, but I'm just basically teaching you a method that works very well. I've been using this rig Most of my life, actually since I was a teenager, I've been using this specific rig and I've caught thousands of fish, fishing this exact way off the rock. So what I'm telling you works, and if you employ it, you'll have good success. Make sure that you like and subscribe, hit the notification bell, that's really important, and I look forward to seeing you really soon in the next video.